This is the Hoff Time Report with Idaho Freedom Foundation President Wayne Hoffman, one of Idaho's most respected, influential public policy voices.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another Hoff Time. Glad to be in the studio with Jerry Gibbs, who is a resident of the West Ada School District. And Jerry, thanks to his efforts, and I think a little bit also from the Idaho Freedom Action, we were able to stop the West Ada School District from passing a pretty big levy, $500 million worth of tax increases. And Jerry he and I have been going back and forth and talking on the phone about just our interactions with the school district, which is the largest in the state of Idaho. And Jerry, welcome to the program. I just want to talk about some of those interactions, and let's just start from the beginning. So you live in the West Ada School District. You would obviously be impacted, or would have been impacted, by the tax increase. And then what did you do once you learned about the proposal to raise taxes in the school district?
Well, Wayne, thank you for having me today, and thank you for your office and your staff for helping in the efforts that we took upon ourselves to fight this plant facility levy. I moved to Idaho 5 years ago because I was basically taxed out of my home in Washington State because of out-of-control levies and bonds. I fought those measures back in Washington State at the ballot box, and eventually got an appointment to the school board so I could show them a more conservative way of doing business. So when I came here, I thought I was going to be able to retire, but when the West Ada School District came up with their plant facility levy for $500 million over 10 years, and the fact that they had come up with a scheme to pass this with a reduced voter threshold, this had all the warning signs of another Washington State maneuver by the school districts to raise our property taxes at a time when everyone wanted a property tax relief. So the size of this measure, the timing, it just said, well, I've got to come out of retirement and see what I can do about this. So
to be clear, what the West Ada School District was proposing was more than $500 million. They wanted to use a levy to pass this tax increase versus a bond because it requires a lower threshold for passage. The bond requires 66 2/3. The levy would have required a simple majority.
That's correct. My philosophy on the school board was bonds are for buildings and levies are for learning. So because of the bond rate is so high in Idaho, and because of allowances by the Idaho Supreme Court, I believe in 2015, that let them run the plant facilities levy, they decided, well, we'll run this as a levy, reduce voter threshold, and see if we can get $500 million of new taxes, at a low turnout election. So it just had all the earmarks of a typical school board playbook that I was very experienced with, and that's what made me come out of retirement, I guess, and take some action.
But wait, there's more, because it wasn't enough that they were seeking a really big tax increase. It wasn't enough that they were seeking to do it by a levy so they can get a lower threshold. It was also the things they were doing to promote the levy that I think got some attention. They produced a video, there was a flyer, and you've been researching that whole thing.
Yes, this there were two state legislators, Jason Monks and Mike Moyle, that are on the State Affairs Committee, that realized that some of their mailers and everything that they were sending out and videos that they were putting out were violating state law. They challenged them and got them to take down a video. Now, at the same time, we became aware of a flyer that was sent out in Meridian. There were 90,000 copies of this mailer sent out in Meridian. It was designed, produced, bulk mailed, and paid for.
You have a copy of it.
I do. It's paid for by the West Ada School District, and it went out to 90,000 people, and it cost the district $31,000 $500 of your.
We'll show it on the screen if you can't
Yeah.
find it handy,
Yeah,
but we'll put it up on the screen so people can see it. But it costs taxpayers quite a bit of money. And the law that we're talking about, this was the law that the Freedom Foundation worked on, I think, in 2018, which basically says that taxing entities, government organizations, may not interfere in election, that they can say what the election's about, but they can't say to folks, vote yes or vote no, or sort of encourage a certain kind of disposition towards a ballot issue.
Plus, the materials have to have a reality to them. And when you dive into their videos and their mailers, it was talking about how much money you're going to save and very deceptive talking points that were leading toward, they might as well have said vote yes. So it's downright electioneering is what it is. And they thought they would get away with it, but they didn't.
Yeah, so the flyer is still something that we're busy researching.
Yes.
Because the school district isn't exactly forthcoming about that. We'll get to that in just a second. But with the video, they actually took down the video. I guess the prosecutor's office was referred the information on the case and decided not to do anything with it.
They were given the case by Representative Moyles and Representative Monks, and upon the prosecutor's review, she was convinced that it was a violation of the, I believe it's the elections, integrity in elections law of 2018, and she required them to take the video down.
But otherwise didn't pursue the civil remedies that appear in the statute.
That's correct. It was basically a slap on the hand.
Yeah, which is too bad because over in Bonneville County, a similar kind of thing happened where the school district was putting out information and pretty much, again, telling people they didn't use the words vote yes, but they definitely were encouraging a yes vote, and the prosecutor over there has filed a case against the school officials that were involved in that. But here you can't see them, which is very typical. We've seen that in other parts of the state as well, where the prosecutors simply won't do anything. They'll say, yeah, that's probably a violation, and maybe they shouldn't do it again. And this is the most I've seen the Ada County prosecutor do, which is say you got to take the video down. But you still have the issue of the flyer. So tell us about the flyer.
Well, the flyer is like the video, is basically the same thing. So all the material was used in all of the information that they produced. So if the video is a violation of the state law, I'm sure that the flyer is too. That's undergoing some review right now, and we look forward to coming attractions on what kind of determinations are made on that.
And you started asking questions about these productions and what the cost was and so forth. And what was that experience like?
Well, this started at a restaurant I was at in Star, and this gentleman brought up a flyer that he had received in the mail. I had no idea about it, and he had received one, and he was asking what this is all about. And so from that, I did have some interaction with the Yes Committee and found out that they didn't have anything to do with it by reviewing their financial information. They had no billing or anything. So they finally told me that the school district put this out. So I submitted a series of FOIA requests. And I know I've submitted a lot of FOIA requests to various government entities. I've never experienced a government group that's so resistant to transparency as the West Ada School District is. I was very disappointed in that. But eventually, after multiple requests, I got what I wanted, and I got the billing for that, for the printing and the bulk mail of that, which, like I said, totaled $31,500. And the fact that it appeared on the consent agendas for the school boards showed that they paid the bill.
What do you mean very resistant?
Well, normally I'd submit a FOIA request to a government agency. And
so FOIA, by the way, Freedom of Information Act.
Information
It's
Act.
technically not that in Idaho, but people call it just generally FOIA. It's public records request.
Public records request, right. And I thought the submission process was very simple to do, and I was very pleased.
You just sent an email to the.
You just click on a link at their website, and the form comes up. You fill out the form, and they're supposed to respond back to you, I believe, in 72 hours, and they did. But they were not. They would say they answered the request, making you think that they didn't understand the question. and I know how to ask these questions. So we went round and round. I finally took like 3 or 4 requests before I was able to get the information that I needed.
So they just kind of played dumb, or they just...
They played dumb. They tried to distract.
So what's an example of that?
Well, when I asked for a copy of the bill that they paid, I got one bill. Okay, and then I had to look at that bill and see a reference to another bill where originally I asked for all the bills associated with the mailer. They sent me the lower priced bill, and then when I saw a reference to a previous bill, I had to FOIA request that specific to get that bill too, by providing them the invoice numbers and the dates and things like that. So they made you do some push-ups before they gave you the information that you requested.
And you've had experience, as you said, dealing with this. So filing records requests was not a new thing to you.
No, I've done it with city councils, county councils, state legislature, school boards, probably 20 or 30 to the Washington State school boards. And I always found their information officer to be very cordial and cooperative, and they basically tripped over themselves to give me what I wanted. Sometimes even giving me more, and I'd go in there and they'd say, well, you owe us $2 for printing costs or something like this. And some of these requests we got, they wanted over $20,000 to do these searches, which if you're familiar with doing word searches and email searches, it's not that hard. So they tried to scare me off, but I've been scared. I've had experts try to scare me off before. I don't scare that easy.
Yeah, I don't know if I told you, I had the same encounter with the West Ada School District. I filed a public records request, and I knew the company that they were working with because of the fact that you supplied the invoices that you had received from the school district. So I wanted to dig more into that, and so I said, I want all your email communications with the company Options Idaho. And they came back and they said, well, the words options and Idaho are very common, and so that's going to be $26,000 to respond to your request. And I thought, you got to be kidding me. So then I narrowed my request to, I just want the emails with this email address, anything at optionsidaho.com. And then I asked for it on a month-to-month basis. I did May, and then I did April, and now I'm waiting for March because when I filed the March request, the school district claimed they hadn't received that, even though a week had passed and nothing had happened. Didn't get any kind of answer back from them. So I'm still waiting to get all the information. I just found that you have to work with them in piecemeal and be very, very specific, because any wiggle room at all, and they will just play dumb. I've never experienced anything like it.
I was very disappointed that it was that way. I thought that we were more upfront with the taxpayers here. And you asked me about my experiences there with the West Ada School District. I've been to some school board meetings. I went to the last one that they had, and I wanted to speak. And they always encourage everyone to speak, and their rules for allowing the public to speak are very rigid. I went in, I signed up, I wanted to speak on the consent agenda that was approving the payment of these bills. And they said, well, and it's clear on their website, you have to speak to something that's on the agenda. The consent agenda was on their agenda, so I thought
So the consent agenda, for those folks who don't understand, is basically they had this list of things that the board or council or whomever it is will basically summarily approve, essentially without discussion.
Month-to-month billing and bills paid. This consent agenda was 117 pages long. And the billing that I wanted to speak to was on page 56. So they weren't going to let me speak because they said that just asking to speak on the consent agenda generically was not specific enough. So I told them that my invoices that I brought were on the consent agenda, and they had to delay the meeting for 15 or 20 minutes while they word searched the consent agenda to find out that what I had asked for was on there. And after they huddled up with their parliamentarians and what other counsel they had there, they came over and said they would allow me to speak.
So you had to actually identify the specific bill on the specific page, or they had to, or something, in order to validate that you had permission to go talk?
They said, unless you give us specific information, we're not going to allow you to speak. And I said, well, it's on the consent agenda. Go do a word search of the consent agenda. You'll find it on there. There's 6 items on the consent agenda to options printing. They finally found it. And once they saw that I knew what I was talking about, they said, well, we'll have to let you speak.
So, you've never encountered anything like that before?
Never before. Normally when you go to a city council, a county council, they invite the public to come up to speak. They don't put restrictions around it. You can go up and talk about a sunny day if you want to. They're supposed to be open to their constituents, all the people that voted for the Board of Trustees, that hired the superintendent. You're supposed to be open on that. But I really had to do some push-ups, I guess, to be allowed to speak. And then when I went up to speak, I was real surprised that most of the time when you speak at a public meeting like that, you're allowed 3 minutes to speak. Theirs is 2 minutes. And as soon as you get the green light on the microphone, a giant stop clock pops up on the screen in front of you, and you're very distracted by watching the clock. And then when the 2 minutes is up, a big stop sign pops up, stop talking. So it's like, they didn't really want to hear what anyone had to say, and the restrictions around public speaking, I've never experienced anything like that.
Was there an option for them to ask you questions?
I asked them if they had any questions of me, and no questions.
Were there just a lot of people there, and they had to limit the amount of testimony?
I was the only one that signed up for testimony.
You're the only one that signed up, and you were still limited to 2 minutes.
That's right. That's right.
Incredible.
And when my 2 minutes was up, the big stop talking sign pops up. So
wow.
Very intimidating to an individual that may wanted to be there to speak about books in the library or some other emotional topic or whatever, or someone that didn't have a lot of experience speaking in front of a school board or a city or a county council. Very intimidating.
So you've been on a school board.
I was on the school board in Peninsula School District in Washington State. Yes.
And so what was your experience when you were on the school board? How did it run there?
Well, there were 5 people on the school board. I was the only. I'm a fiscal conservative, so I guess I was the only fiscal conservative. There was a moderate Republican and then the other 3 were Democrats. They were somewhat forced to give me the open position against their wishes, but because the other gentleman that they wanted didn't do very well in the interview, they were kind of forced to give it to. But I enjoyed my time on the school board. I met a lot of teachers. Teachers pay taxes too. That's one thing that people forget. But I toured every school building with the maintenance superintendent so I could understand all of the maintenance issues and helped them come up with a plan that was more conservative in nature, other than the traditional spend money like as they have a printing press. We came up with some great ideas to utilize modular construction for building schools, which is used in private industry right now for building everything, and it's almost 40% right off the top. We have a lot of abandoned commercial real estate here in Boise. I showed them where they wanted to build a $100 million career technical education center over by Hawaii High School. I showed them a Dennis Miller vacant dealership over on Fairview, great location. The building was completely remodeled in 2002. It's got all the fire suppressions, 7 bays, it's 22,000 square feet. It's assessed for $3.7 million. It's got beautiful parking lot. ADA compliant. They could go and purchase buildings like that, and you instead of spending $100 million for a career technical center.
Yeah, it's interesting because I remember years ago when I was working down in Burley, they were wanting to expand the county government office space, and I said, well, gosh, I have some experience from when I was living and working in Arkansas in the very early days of my career, and the city council there took an old grocery store and turned it into city offices, still there right now. And Cassia County ended up doing that, actually. But very rare, very, very rare is it for some government entity to want to take an old building and turn into something new. They want new construction. They really do. And the schools especially, they absolutely want new construction. They want to build these Taj Mahals, I guess, and at great expense to taxpayers, which is unfortunate.
They do. And one thing, to you're not going to build your way out of the overcrowding problem. You're never going to do that because they want to build new elementaries. Then you're going to have a middle school problem or a high school problem. You're not going to build your way out of this. It's going to take out of the box, paradigm shifting thought process to figure out how to do this in a fiscally conservative way. It's being done all over the country. And it's time that the West Ada School District take a lesson from other successful school districts that have done similar things.
Well, you seem to know a lot about it. Has anyone approached you from West Ada and say, hey, you won, we lost. What are your suggestions for dealing with?
Well, following the Nate Shellman debate that we had with the chairman of the Yes Committee, a very intelligent lady in the real estate business, she asked to see some of my information. We spent over an hour going through all the documents and examples that I had, and she was very impressed with the ideas and my past experience on helping implement those and helping a school district construct a fiscally responsible levy or bond and get it to pass. And we passed it with 86% approval, and we had consensus from the conservative community, conservative think tanks. They were involved. Here, they have a echo chamber of their own supporters, and they only listen to themselves. They call them stakeholders, but they're really their own people. And they come up with a plan, and that's where you get the ideas of repaving parking lots and remodeling beautiful auditoriums, for one reason or another, or weight rooms and things that don't necessarily improve learning outcomes. After COVID, this state needs to be focused 100% on COVID recovery and learning outcome improvements, not repaving tennis courts and parking lots and weight rooms.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of people don't understand is there was a lot in that levy that had nothing to do with dealing with overcrowding. There was, fixing up playgrounds, redoing the weight room. We talk about the daycare center that folks are completely unaware that was in there, daycare center specifically for West Ada School District employees. And then I guess they were going to add on to that, since you can't fund it with a levy, subsidizing the daycare services for the employees, which is just incredible. There's just so much that was in that levy. I mean, there was some in there that certainly had to do with classrooms and space issues, but so much that was beyond that.
$32 million for playground equipment. I don't know if you've gone out to price playground equipment that will survive legal challenge when a child falls out of it and breaks their arm, but these ADA compliant playground equipments are so expensive it's almost to the point you don't want to put them up, because number one, they're a liability to the for the school district when the child gets hurt. Now the lawyers get all involved. You're better off to come up with a different way for children to exercise other than spending $32 million for ADA compliant playground equipment. It's insane.
It is insane, and it's just it's a cottage industry all in itself. The playground equipment, the cafeteria, the textbooks, the software, the buildings, everything is part of this elaborate system to take money out of taxpayers' pockets. It's pretty incredible.
Absolutely. It's a printing press of tax dollars, and I saw this same situation play out in Washington State, and I'm here to warn the taxpayers and the voters in Idaho. They're coming after you, and these taxing districts, be it the schools or the fire or the sewer, they can get into your wallet faster than the state or the federal government can. Everybody complains about what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's what's going on in your own street that you better watch out for.
And also, you can do something about it.
Absolutely.
And you did.
I was I don't think the West Ada School District has ever had organized opposition against any of their ideas. I approached them early and asked a lot of questions and introduced myself and tried to be cordial and diplomatic, but they had their mindset on what they wanted to do, and they really thought that because they lowered the voter threshold and the passage rate of levies in Idaho, which is about 80%, they thought this was going to be a cakewalk for them. But and they spent a lot of money trying to make it happen. We spent very little money, if any, and did it mostly on social media and to get out the vote to the demographics. People underestimate the power of social media, but and this is the first time I've been exposed to the Nextdoor here, and we had Nextdoor app. And I was amazed at some of the postings I made on there. You can view the insights on it. I had 18 to 20,000 views on those, and we were running polls and trying to reach the specific demographic of voters that were going to turn out in a low turnout election. So they counted on a very low turnout. I think the turnout for an off-year special election was probably higher than in previous years. It was over 20%. So I don't think they counted on that. They count on their own people turning out, their PTAs and their parents and the seniors that they get to register to vote. They count on, there's 147 precincts in the West Ada School District. And a lot of those precincts, the polling places are inside the schools. Actually, it's 37. So it kind of gives the school district a conflict of interest advantage there by conducting the elections in a facility that's going to benefit from that election. If that's not a conflict of interest, I don't know what is, and I wish that the Secretary of State and the Ada County clerk would take a look at that, and especially for these special elections, is take those polling places out of a school.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I've seen them also do, family fun night on election night and things like that. And you still have the issue also where the schools will take the election information, they'll put it in with the report card, and the open rate on those is near 100%. I wish people read my mail as much as they read the school district's mail, but they set it up to where they have an advantage, and you beat that system. So
I was so happy to see that the legislature overrode the veto of Governor Little on the elimination of the
March date. Yep.
Yeah, one of the special elections, and and maybe it was part of their exposure to their quasi electioneering that they were doing that brought that upon themselves. So yes, I learned back in Washington State that. If you can get the word out on these special elections and you can get out the vote and you know how to do all those things, you can be successful in stopping stupid spending, be it in a school district or we also ran a referendum in Pierce County and stopped a $320 million new county building using the same methods. So.
Let that be a lesson for folks. We can fight back and you can win, and you did it. Jerry, really appreciate your hard work. Appreciate you being on the program.
Happy to be here, and they're meeting tonight. This is June 20th, and they're meeting tonight to determine their next move. Oh. I don't know if they have the time to put it on the August ballot because they have to submit their ballot language to the clerk by July 10th. That's the night of the next board meeting. So they may try for November, but they're going to run this again. So taxpayers and voters, beware.
Beware and stay vigilant and keep an eye on Jerry. You'll keep us up to date with what they do tonight.
I do, and again, I thank your organization for all the assistance and work from your staff on giving some information that we could run with and inform the public.
Happy to do it. Thank you so much. And
thank you, Wayne.
And thank you all for watching. And please don't just watch and sit back and do nothing. Take it from Jerry. Again, you can win. You can fight back. There are school levies and bonds all over the state all the time. Ask tough questions about what it is they're doing. Ask how they're planning to spend the money. Ask how they're promoting their proposals, because all of that is extraordinarily important, and it can make a difference. So thanks again for watching the Hoff Time Report, and we'll be back with another episode soon, so thanks again.
You've been listening to the Hoff Time Report with Wayne Hoffman. Be sure to visit idahofreedom.org for Wayne's articles, IFF research, and show notes from today's episode.